James Harden to Philly, we know that Daryl Morey signed with the Sixers. He's actually getting about like $10 million a year. I think his GM contract is even more. Well, his president of operations contract is even more than what Phil Jackson got with the Knicks.
Was it like 5 years, $60 million I gave him?
Yeah, I think Daryl Morey is getting a little bit more. And he loves James Harden.
Oh my God.
And the 76ers are eyeing him. In my opinion, I don't think they get him because the Rockets have already said if the Rockets try to trade James Harden, well, if the Sixers try to trade Ben Simmons for James Harden straight up, they're going to say hell no. Like, it's not even, they're going to say no flat out. Like, it's not even a deal. The player they'd have to trade is Joel Embiid.
I don't think Doc wants. I think Doc likes the Embiid and Ben Simmons pairing. My question to you is, I just want to throw out a quick hypothetical, right? Say Embiid goes to Houston, they get Harden. Where would you put Philly in the East? James Harden, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Josh Richardson. Where would you put Philly in the East?
If it's James/Ben Simmons, like that's the duo, I'd put them behind Brooklyn with KD and Kyrie. I'd put them behind them, and my gut feeling is telling me that Giannis is going to Miami. And if he does go to Miami,
this season,
I don't know about this season.
So,
maybe next season.
Next season, so then the Bucks are still a 60-win regular season team.
Possibly, yeah. But I kind of have that feeling with Giannis to Miami. So if he goes, I have Giannis and Butler, KD and Kyrie ahead of James and Simmons, even James and Embiid. That's why, to me, I think even getting James Harden to Philly doesn't put them over the top because their role players, a bunch of the players they have, it just doesn't fit.
Right.
Like, they don't fit. Like Tobias, he's very inconsistent. Josh Richardson, they probably have to trade him as well to get James Harden. So, like, who are they going to be left with? James Harden, like Shake Milton, Tobias, Ben Simmons.
Shake is a 44% three-point shooter.
Al Horford.
He's terrible.
You're going to be left with these players that aren't very good. And I don't think they fit.
I think the rumors, I understand the rumors because, like you said, Daryl Morey, he loves James Harden. He wanted him to win so bad. But I think at this point, Philly needs to look at their two stars, and they need to build from the top down. They need to get the role players out of there. Tobias Harris, they should have never paid him $36 million, but that's in the past. Now you got to figure out how to get him out of there. Al Horford, you should have never paid him either. Now you got to figure out. Now they have a bright spot, Matisse Thybulle. He's really good, great defender. That's their one bright spot. Ben Simmons obviously is a bright spot, but he's hurt. He's offensive. He's a liability in the fourth quarter on offense. He's a great defender. Joel Embiid, they don't fit. So they have to figure out what's their system and what they can roll with, and who are they going to ride with for the rest of their career? Because Ben Simmons is a franchise player. Let's be honest.
I can't believe you're disrespecting James Harden like this. I say that because if Philly has a chance to get James Harden, you get James Harden.
I get that, but I don't think, like you said, I don't think James Harden you get James Harden. I don't think you're a chip team. You're still a championship team.
I think you can make it there. With Simmons, for a fact
if
you're not
Giannis
that.
goes to the Heat, the Sixers will never beat them. Never beat them. Especially if it's James Harden and Ben Simmons, no Embiid.
If it's James Harden and Embiid, they can. They have a chance.
No, you still don't have a chance.
Yes, they do. I think you're disrespecting James Harden because if you can trade for James Harden, you trade for him. He's a top 5 player in the NBA.
He's not a top 5 player.
Yes,
in the NBA.
he is.
Well, that's debatable.
He's a top 5 player in the NBA.
Debatable.
James Harden is a great player. He's a Hall of Fame player. Ben Simmons, yes, he's a good player. You called him a franchise player. I don't think he's that. I think Ben Simmons is a complimentary player to another star, like a James Harden if he was to go to Philly, but he's never going to be a first option in his life.
You don't have to be a first option. Jason Kidd was never a first option, franchise player. Steve Nash was never a first option.
He was. Jason Kidd was the best player on his team.
Okay, but he was never a first option though.
But he's the best player on his team.
Ben Simmons can be the best player on his team.
All right, on a team that can make the championship. No.
Let's dissect this real quick. Ben Simmons. All right, James Harden. He goes. If James Harden and Embiid square up against Miami, and they got Giannis and Jimmy and Tyler Hero, I don't see it. Like I don't see the reality in where we see James Harden and them being
without Giannis or with Giannis.
With Giannis, I'm talking about with Giannis because we're all in agreement. Giannis is probably gonna. That's for next topic. But okay, Brooklyn. How are they gonna beat Brooklyn? How are you gonna beat Brooklyn?
What do you mean? How are you going to beat Brooklyn?
With James Harden and Ben Simmons or James Harden and Embiid? What are you going to do?
James Harden and Embiid, that's if it's James and Embiid, they can beat Brooklyn.
No, they can't.
Yes, they can.
You don't have an. I'm telling you, no, they can't, man.
Yes, they can. Why? Why can't they?
Kyrie, KD, if they get Drew Holiday. Even if they don't, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, DeAndre Jordan.
Okay, what about that? Tobias, Joel Embiid.
Are you serious? That's the first guy you named?
No, I'm just saying. I'm naming their players. Matisse Thybulle, who can play really good defense. You even mentioned him.
He can play great defense.
And James Harden. Kevin Harden.
Durant.
I don't think people acknowledge how great James Harden is. It's James Harden. James Harden can drop 40 on anybody on any given night. It's James Harden. No, I know it's KD.
No. But you're saying it's James Harden.
I know it's KD. Okay, James Harden and KD, for me, they cancel out. I think they cancel out.
All right, so playoff. We're talking about playoff time, right?
Yeah.
Kyrie and Embiid. I don't even know which way we lead to that.
Kyrie and Embiid, it really depends because if I put Matisse Thybulle on Kyrie,
what about it?
He'll still get his buckets. But
I've seen him dominate Clay before. So
I know, but then who's gonna guard Joel Embiid?
Well, that's where you have I'm not saying they can. I'm not saying they can, but that's where you have two bigs.
And then your third option. Who's the Nets' third option? That's what
LeVert
they need.
Or Dinwiddie.
LeVert. If I'm being honest, I'd rather have Tobias as my third option.
No. Because I know, at least with Dinwiddie, you know what you're going to get every night. Tobias Harris, you don't know what you're going to get every night. He's very inconsistent. Dinwiddie's a consistent guy who's going to give you the same thing.
I think people underestimate how much better James Harden makes his teammates. Okay. I think people really do. I think you pair him up with Tobias Harris, where Tobias doesn't have that pressure to kind of, because last year he was kind of having to fill that Jimmy Butler role. That's what they signed him long term. He had that pressure on him.
What about the year when Jimmy was there?
When Jimmy was there, he was kind of an outcast player. Because I mean, you have Simmons dominating the ball, then Butler, then Embiid has to get his touches. Tobias is kind of like the odd man out. But if you have Harden, Tobias, and Embiid, and that's your big three, that's your three, then I think you can do some damage. I think you know that James Harden is the closer. He's the guy who's going to have the ball. Embiid is a second option, and Tobias is a second option to create off the dribble.
But what's the confusion with? It's the same thing. James Harden is going to dominate the ball. You said Ben Simmons dominate the ball. James Harden is the closer. Jimmy Butler was their closer.
Oh, it's different because for one, Jimmy Butler isn't the facilitator James Harden is.
I'm not saying he is, but Ben Simmons is.
Yeah, but he's not the scorer that James Harden is either. Okay, but that take. I mean, it's easier to guard Ben Simmons. We know that because people are sagging off of him. It's harder for him to create shots, especially in the playoffs. We've seen it. With James Harden, it's much easier. Yeah. I'm just in the belief that if you can make players like P.J. Tucker and Clint Capella, like Clint Capella was a borderline all-star with James Harden. If you can make players like that better, then I don't think there's any question that he can make Embiid along with Tobias better. Like, I know that like people underestimate James Harden's greatness way too much. If the Sixers can do a trade to get Harden, they should do it in a heartbeat. If it doesn't involve giving up like their whole team for it, obviously.
Right.
But if they can do a package with Ben Simmons, Josh Richardson, and somebody else or some picks, then they do it. But I'm not sure if Houston is going to accept it because James Harden is a top 5 player. So, you're not going to accept the Ben Simmons and Josh Richardson for James Harden trade. You're just not.
I mean, if you have the opportunity to get a top 6 player in the league, then obviously, yeah, you make the push. I just don't see him as taking Philly over the top to get to. Like, I don't think, regardless of where he is, I don't think he's going to the finals in the East or the West.
I think because the East is much weaker, I think he has a shot. He has a way better shot of making it out the East than he does the West.